The links to join the channel here over on Subscribestar. Be sure to check out the Odyssey and Rumble. So Dark Tower, possibly with Pedro Pascal. Sometimes dead is better. It's just a little bit of a Stephen King joke for the fans, though really he does mix universes, or he's got all these multi-dimensional universes, but they're all connected through the beams and the tower. So it's not really as mixed as it sounds. Or the cultural Marxists come again for the Dark Tower, because if you remember the 2017 film. And the thing with the Pet Cemetery line from Dead is Better is that they're coming out with a possible prequel, which I'm sure will be cringe, because everything now is cringe. What they're doing with these reimagining of these stories should be punishable. It's a war crime and a war that only one side is aware they're in. Hollywood doesn't want to tell these, and there's just layers and layers to this. Deeper meaning to what they're doing. Hollywood doesn't want to tell these stories as written because they're demons. They want to challenge expectations. Translations use the name recognition of the stories to bring in an audience to subject them to cultural Bolshevik propaganda. What Goldman and Pinkel did to the 2017 Dark Tower was shockingly bad. But, they really thought they were doing something. And when they say stuff like challenge expectations, subvert expectations, you look at them and you just like, are you a master storyteller where you can do that? No, they're not master storytellers. They did it with Disney Star Wars too. We're subverting all people expected was you to carry on the original origin story. It's like, oh, that's boring. It was so boring that it created one of the biggest story universes ever told. But you think you're going to subvert that and somehow tell a better story than the origin story that you spent money to buy? None of that makes sense until you understand that it's not about telling the original stories. It's not about anything other than spreading these cultural Marxist themes. The 2017 Dark Tower was an atrocity, but it's pretty much what you expect for Hollywood. They have no interest in telling the original stories, just in pushing globalist propaganda. And when they present it to you and ask you for your ticket money, just tell them that diversity is cringe. Pedro is a popular character right now. He's in The Last of Us, which people seem to be watching, and the upcoming season of The Mandalorian, which had Baby Yoda, and that was kind of about it. It's kind of the perfect example of the crap that people are willing to settle for. Mandalorian is really a nothing show. It's very Disney. It's not Star Wars, but hashtag more diversity, accelerate the destruction. If it's the Star Wars, the Mando Star Wars, it wasn't good. It's just in comparison to everything that it came around it. You don't have to settle for stuff that it doesn't get. Oh, it's better than the rest of the offerings. Well, everything, the baseline should be good. It shouldn't just be, oh, it's not as bad as I expected, but it's still bad. So the only thing that show had for it is the member berries of the sets from Star Wars, which, admittedly were fantastic and are fantastic in that show. So people watch it for that, where nobody is watching Andor Star Wars, because it's just a thinly veiled story about how much they hate the British. In Andor Star Wars, there's one of the lead evil women is like she's so blonde and so fair. Her blonde hair is almost white. I mean, why don't you just give her an Austrian accent while you're at it? Maybe a riding crop or something, or some, I mean, it's so on the nose, it's touching the brain, a lot of this kind of stuff. And, as a consequence, nobody saw Andor Star Wars. They interviewed the people, and they go like, yeah, we thought we had kind of a built-in audience. It's Star Wars. It's Disney Plus. And the audience didn't materialize. And, they're not going to come on and say, yeah, because Disney flubbed the Disney Star Wars, and then they also flubbed the Solo. But, yeah, if you expected a built-in audience, have you seen what Disney has been doing on the big screen? Because to expect an audience now is really bizarre. You're gonna have to you have to start from the bottom. And to be fair, Andor Star Wars is not very good. It's what I said. It's just some kind of vaguely anti-British, anti-colonialism theme. What's the meme of the Spanish coming to the New World? Sorry, the human sacrifices will stop now. So I saw the Last of Us. It was too woke for me, but some people enjoy the humiliation ritual, so it will probably do fine. It's like the Mary Sue crowd on Twitter, they get on board shows, and when they get on board shows, they can kind of make a show happen. I mean, I think they tried to get on board She-Hulk, and it's like there still wasn't enough energy behind that. But Last of Us I think got a wider audience. I saw Last of Us, at least the first episode. It was too woke for me, but some people enjoy that kind of stuff. It's a collection of pox-walks women who are leading the ragtag Bolshevik found family against the evil blue-eyed people. Wow, who saw that coming? Are you saying dark skin good, fair, bad? Gosh, who would have expected such a plot twist? It's only you see it like obvious. I mean, obviously, it's just every single time and every single thing. We get it. We really just enough. So I entered the Dark Tower, which is a collection of books from Stephen King. It was self-indulgent. It was still good. At least the cringy parts didn't ruin the good parts. How do I put this? It would not be written today, and a lot of Stephen King stuff would not be written today. And I mean, in his defense, there's that one scene that people like have this pretended outrage for was in the not the stand. What was it? I think where the kids are at the end of one of the scenes. It's like an objectionable scene. All I can say is when I read the book as a kid, and I've read it several times throughout the years, it just fit the story, and it's like it doesn't come across as Stephen King being a creeper, even though I mean he's like an SJW for his own reasons, but he's not a creeper in that regard. It's like it just fit the story, and it was written in a different time, and you're trying to go back to something written in the '70s or even in the I mean the kids today, it's like I don't know how they live with these like sensitivities. Like, how do you kids live reading old literature? Oh, that's easy. We don't. Oh, oh. So you're really not interested. You know, if they read the writings of like Moses Mordecai Levy, their hero, aka Karl Marx, or Che Guevara, like if you read what these people actually felt, or even Fidel Castro, or like all Engels and Lenin, and you read like what they actually felt, like oh these heroes have feet of clay, to say the least. Anyway, so Stephen King writes women like a man who has never met one and he still hates them. He tries to write from the woman's perspective because I think in his mind he's being a 70s sensitive male, but very, very surface level. I, I got my wife I don't know, a new apron and a vacuum cleaner, but it's horrible. He'd be better off just minimizing it and sticking to the male perspective. Everything is better when you write what you know. Sometimes it works when you write something that you don't know, but only when it is that they're written as anti the expected character, like a smart, funny woman. Nobody's expecting it. And then he writes black women, and it really has to be seen to be believed. It would be better off if he didn't. It's like those middle aged paintings of cats by people who seem to be viewing cats through a prism. But anyway, The Dark Tower was mostly good in that it created this universe for stories to be told. And you could make it a film or a streaming, but they couldn't do it. I mean, we, normal people, could do it because everything is just a vehicle for woke cancer. Basically, the story has a Clint Eastwood character roaming about this desert in an alternative dimension, chasing after a demon who's a tool of a creature who wants to destroy the universe by breaking the tower and the beams that hold the universe together. The ultimate story isn't so critical, it's the side quest stories he has along the way that are interesting. But the first book establishes an Old West theme, but in this hellscape dimension of a world moving on, sort of a Lord of the Rings themes, where elves hop into sailing ships and sail off to another world or parallel world. The theme roughly being that the magic creatures are leaving this world, and without them, it's all going to hell. Don't say anything in the comments, but yes, it seems to have that theme, though I doubt King was thinking exactly of that because he kind of thinks of himself as a left winger. And in the stories, he does draw from pop culture throughout the years because all the universes are connected. So he kind of makes sense in that regard. But there is a self insert, which all you had to do was just take that self insert out of the story, and it would have been much better. And I get the feeling if he rewrote it today, without the whiskey and cocaine, he would have removed that scene at least. Anyway, so you can take a bunch of those either spaghetti westerns or the western romances or the comedies and the sets and sounds, those type of Clint Eastwood vibe movies. They had a general vibe of a very rough civilization, except this is in reverse. It's all fading away. The people who created it are no more, which is a common theme in science fiction. These advanced blonde and red-haired, blue-eyed people who go out into the worlds and do fantastic things. Even the North and South New World Indians had myths based on what was probably the Vikings. And even in The Lord of the Rings, the elves are blonde. So anyway, the first book of The Dark Tower, Gunslinger, firmly establishes the Western motif. It's Clint Eastwood, or it's as close to him as possible. So what do the parasites in Hollywood do? Well, they don't go looking for someone who fits the universe. They find a non-fair actor, the anti Clint Eastwood, to play the role, and the movie is unwatchable. So hey, why is this purse puppy playing Clint Eastwood? Shut up, bigot. But I read the books. I know the setting of the universe. I have my head canon all fixed. It's roughly Clint Eastwood, not this purse puppy hired to virtue signal how woke the company is. I hate diversity and I hate virtue signaling. It destroys storytelling. Just tell the organic story. And apparently, other people also did felt the same, because the film bombed across audiences. It bombed. And there's a scene where they go to a town, and it's just like you threw a net out in L.A. and just grabbed everyone who was on the street for a casting call. It's like, do we meet the diversity checklist? Yeah, we got a black guy with an Asian girl. Okay, okay, okay. That's not gonna. None of this flies. None of this. So it's this diverse found family Bolshevik concept of. Okay, this. Could you lighten up the globalism for 5 minutes and just tell the story as is? No, that is a bridge too far, my good man. We're not going to tell that story today. So Pedro Pascal does not fit the Dark Tower universe either. It's like the Solo movie. The original actor who played Han Solo, Ford, had a certain actually he had a Clint Eastwood physical body type, at least. The tall, very low body fat, fit. Ford, I think, was 6'2" in Star Wars and the indie films. You shrink when you get older. But he had a certain physical presence with his co-stars, where I don't know what you call it, the blocking of the co-stars, where they stand and how they stand in relation to each other. He was looking down on them because they were Mark Hamill and Carrie Fisher were shorter than he was, and it's just like where they stand in doorways and with the props and the sets, how much space they take up. It's just a certain vibe of the characters that you establish in the earlier films. You have to stick to that vibe. And he was portrayed in the movies as a little bit older and wiser, a bit more experienced, someone who had seen some tight situations and blasted his way out with his walking carpet at his side. Then in the Solo prequel, they cast this little hobbit man who didn't have the physical presence. It didn't make sense, because how hard is it to find an actor in Hollywood who's 6'2", or maybe 6', 6'1", who, if you give him boots, at least can fit the physicality. He's got to be the same character. I mean, the character is not your 5'8" standard actor. It's like he was Harrison Ford, who played the role when he was 29 years old. He has to fit that mold of that actor. It's one of the many reasons Solo bombed. I mean, the bigger reason is the Disney prequel that came before it. That was J.J. Abrams and Rian Johnson. They did something to Disney Star Wars. That's probably just best forgotten. Hollywood doesn't respect the earlier stories that they drew from. The Dark Tower film was a great example. We don't want a race-swapped Roland. Why would you erase the original character? Because they're globalists. All they can do is destroy what other people created. And this will be no different. Rumor or not, with Pedro Pascal, whatever role he might play in it, I mean, he's pretty busy. I don't know if he's going to do another streaming show. It doesn't matter who they cast in the role. I can promise you it will be a woke race swap purse puppy, Mary Sue, except of course the antagonist, who will probably be blonde-haired and blue-eyed. And they cast Matthew McConaughey in the 2017 thing. I'm not sure if they de-aged him for that, or I don't know how old was he, about 50 in that. I guess that's a fine role. Honestly, the Clint Eastwood character in the Dark Tower should probably be a very lean guy, probably in his 50s, because he's got to be worn. He's got to be worn down. It's got to be someone who's a fit 50s or even 60s, who's very physically fit, very low body fat, which is, I mean, there's plenty of Hollywood people who are, guys who are still, riding their bicycles and physically fit, who are like 60, very low body fat. They've got to look like they've been around the universe. They've got to be craggy and beat down and not the most attractive people. They've got to look like, I don't want to see Lyle Lovett. They've got to look like they've rolled down a mountain a few times, and they just kept getting up and going for it. It's like, that's why Clint Eastwood was so good for the role. Even Harrison Ford would have been good for the role if they were, back in the days. But you got to find somebody who fits the role. And who's the other guy? Isra Albias, or Yes, it's a graphic novel. That Israel guy didn't fit the role, obviously, because it's based in the old West. Oh, this is a Yeah, I get it. I get it. I get it. Your globalist parasites. I get it. You want to erase everything that came before. Why don't you just write your? Oh, but the story took 50 years to write. The seven series Lord of the Rings, the seven series Dark Tower series. Yeah, it was written over like 50 years. He probably started writing in the 60s, and through just mountains of Bolivian marching powder and whiskey, and through a lot of personal tragedies, and he came up with this story. And it's not perfect by any means. It's very imperfect. But you're not even making an attempt to carry out the artist's original vision. And you ask him now, he's woken. They go, hey, I'm sure he signed off on all this kind of race swapping stuff. It's like, well, yeah, but that's not what he wrote. If you want to write something, oh, but we don't want to wait 50 years to write a story. Yeah, but good things take time. It's the same way with comic books. Like, very rarely does a comic book do a Walking Dead thing where it springs up and just takes off all on its own. Usually, it takes years and decades to catch on. Like, yeah, we don't have time for that. We're doing this soft Bolshevik revolution. We got to change everything and tear down statues and erase your history and erase. And it's the 1984, the eternal present, the eternal now. Oh, we're talking about it. It was always like this. Oh, I mean, it's like we have those movies on YouTube of earlier civilizations. Talk about like how long will those videos on YouTube be online? The cities in America and Europe from like the decades ago. It's like, wow, it sure was different. And the real eye opener is go through and read the comments of those. The comment section will the people are, oh, they just took the nicest parts of the city and filmed that. It's like, really? Because there's a lot of these videos across the city. Anyway, I'll probably edit that a little bit out. Anyway, like, comment, subscribe. Thank you to Vegan and Ireland and everyone else over at Subscribe Star, and I'll see you guys all next episode.